courses from the Asian Classics Institute, very detailed, ancient words from the Buddha, commentaries from the 1300s, commentaries from the 1800s or 300 AD, and we're picking apart Buddhist logic, reasoning, and practices to get this other view of the reality we think is very out there. You know, like the reality we live every day, we have some assumptions that from a Buddhist or wake uppers point of view, they would think some of our assumptions are a little silly. Yeah, and so we're trying to look at the world from their perspective. If you're just logging on, just mute yourself, please. From their perspective, to get an understanding, what's it really mean to be a wake uppist, a Buddhist? How do they think about the world? So we'll do a quick summary now with Javier and I, and then you've landed on a class that's the beginning of the proof of future lives. So this whole idea of reincarnation, we're going to look at it today and Thursday. You're really only going to get a taste, and it will open up a Pandora's box for you. Enjoy. Yeah. And once you open that box, can't go back. So thanks everyone for joining in. There's a couple of tracks here, people that have done this coursework before and are just trying to get accreditation by completing the homeworks, quizzes, readings, assignments. And they're all on Thinkific if you haven't got that link. There are people that are just wanting to just swim in this state of mind and say, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And how can I apply it? And then there are people whose first time to look at Buddhist thought. And so hopefully Javier and I can reach all three of you, all three views, right? Very simplistic, practical terms, a little deeper application and implications, and then hopefully give you access to completing your paperwork so you can get a certification from the Asian Classics Institute. That's what you've landed in. My name is Hector Marcel. I'm the Presidente of Three Jewels, but not that kind of Presidente. My job is to just create a space where people, mostly volunteers at Three Jewels, can share this wisdom in practice through yoga, meditation, Dharma talks like this, public events, and giving activities to homeless shelters and the rest. So that's where you've landed. Three Jewels, I'm Hector, and that is Javier. Can you do a quick intro on you while I set up screen
Yeah,
share?
yeah, of course. So I'm Javier. I voted for Hector for president. No, I've been a member of the Three Jewels for over a decade now, and I've been teaching meditation and some Dharma. And, you know, this is some of the most important stuff to put in our mind, whatever else happens during the day or during the week. I feel like this few hours that we have to observe this like very very non-Western traditional philosophy to adapt to our life. It's the most valuable hour of the week. So yeah, I like to put my mind in that space. It helps me pay attention. So yeah, that's me. That's my story. And there's some people who are unmuted. So if you can mute yourself, that would be fantastic. Excellent, thank you. All right, so Hector, all you.
Thank you. So it's tradition in this Tibetan Buddhist world to imagine, to start off with the goal in mind. Imagine that you were able to perceive a perfected universe, meaning this thing we're always striving for. I want to get happy. I want goodness, right? So there's this tradition to create what's called a mandala, and there's this mudra. You don't have to do anything. You can just imagine. But the perception in your mind through this chant is imagine every sentient creature, everyone like you, completely free from suffering in its place, blissed out. Like every sensory experience they have is just wisdom and bliss. And so you imagine that, and you're sort of bribing the part of your mind that has understanding, that gets teachings, that has insights. You're saying, here, I imagine this perfect universe. Take it quick as a gift, but give me in return some learning so I can become that. So that's the next two things. It's tradition at the beginning of every class, every meditation, every retreat, and we'll do it again at the end. So play if you want to, and here I go. And you can follow muted at home, otherwise it echoes. Sashi Puki Jishin Metok Drum Rira Lingshi Yunde Gampadi Sange Shindu Mite Guargi Droken Amda Shinla Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnidyatayami Sangha Ajudang Zogi Jognam Lam Janchu Bardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Daki Jinyan Gipezanam Ki Rola Benjir Zange Drupar Sho Sange Jidang Zogi Jognam Janshu Bardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Daki Jinyan Gipezanam Ki Drola Benjir Sange Drupar Sho Sange Jidong Zoki Jognam La Janju Bardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Daki Shinyan Gipezanam Ki Drola Benjir Sange Drupar Sho. Okay, so I invite you for the next hour and a bit. Can you lock your minds into the possibility of waking up, enlightenment, awakening, and see what worldview we can have with that? Here we go. Quick summary. Uh, we're up to part 3, week 3 of a 5-week summary of that 20-year curriculum. It's about a third of it, and we're on to just over a half of that third. We just finished applied meditation. Today we're doing, future lives. And next week we're going to do karma, the movement of the mind and how it works. But here's a quick summary of what we've covered so far. The first class we took, the first week we took, we looked at this tiny text that summarized, it's a lam rim text, which means steps on the path, or steps, graduated steps that we do. If you do this, then that, your mind should wake up. And this, the summary of this text called Lam So Nam Sum, basically says, as human creatures, if you want to shift your reality so it doesn't have as the suffering that we're experiencing with the goodness, all mixed up, goodness and suffering, goodness and suffering. If you want to break that cycle, good things going away, and want to just have a experience like that of a saint or like that of a Buddha, if you want to be enlightened, you should develop these 3 states of mind. And the first one was renunciation, meaning I'm sick and tired of things not working out. There's got to be another way. Summary. And then the next one is, if you really want to have total awakening, you should have that wish to wake up, to investigate what's going on here, not just for your waking up, but for the waking up of everyone else. My mum is also suffering. My best friend is also losing their things and struggling with reality. So anyone that's depressed or angry or whatever thing destroys your happiness, I want to figure that out. What's the thing that's creating that? Not just for me, but for the sake of everyone else. That's bodhicitta. And then the third of these 3 principal paths, these 3 states of mind that Buddha said we should try and generate in order to wake up, is this correct view of reality. And this is trippy and this is intense, and we got to return our minds to that over and over, but it's intense because it's so simple. And this is the idea of karma and emptiness. And so they sound like big words, but what they mean is very precise and has direct implications on how we engage with our lives. And so emptiness, summary, for those of you that haven't heard the pen thing, is saying that every phenomena we engage with, phenomena inside of us and outside of us, any stuff at all that our mind is placed on, doesn't have a nature from its own side. Things exist. There are pens and there are jobs and there is food and there are things, but they're not the way they appear to us from their own nature. And an easy way to understand that is the human eye can only see like 3% of all the light spectrum. So we're forever looking at reality thinking we're seeing everything, but we're seeing 3% of what's visible. And that's just one sense. The ear is the same, nose is the same, touch is the same, etc. And our minds, not our brains, our minds, the cognition, the consciousness that engages with all that data is forming some model of what's really out there. And we live and mostly function okay with that model. So the third of the states of mind that Buddha said we should develop to wake up is the state of mind that engages with reality and understands what appears isn't what it is. It is what it is for us, but it's not what it is by its own nature. It's empty of a nature, and our karma, our mental projections, our mental experience of that, it's what forms our model of reality, and we operate in that model, and that model has some broken bits in it which we should correct. We should try and investigate. So that's the first week we covered here. It's an intense topic. It will take you years to think through and meditate, and we just tasted it. Yeah. So that was week one. I hope I did that the easiest way or the most meaningful way I could for those of you who are hearing it for the first time. And then the second week, what we did is the what qualifies someone to be a wake-uppist, a Buddhist, and I don't mean like a religious person, okay? Because there are some Buddhists who are not really Buddhists. I mean Buddhist in the sense of wake-uppist, someone that has these three states of mind developing. The following week we did is we looked at what is real refuge, meaning ultimate refuge. What could really protect us from creating more and more suffering mixed up with happiness, suffering mixed up with happiness? What is it that we could go to that protects us? And that was a whole course on Buddhist refuge, what our mind should automatically go to for protection. And it's called the three jewels. But in essence, it's that thing I just talked about. Things don't have a nature. The nature is produced by our projections force, not by choice, like the way our minds engage with that. And you can change that engaging. And it's recognizing first and foremost that your consciousness, your mind, is not by its nature the way you're experiencing it right now. Christina is not always being Christina like that, even though Christina thinks she is. Hector's not always been Hector like this. Physically, I was never this beautiful, right? And mentally, I was never this dumb, right? So we're changing moment to moment, but some story in our heads, the formulating of who we think we are, is telling us a story that we are constant, that we are permanent. And that's what creates the problem. And so in this course, our mind can go to a refuge, a protection from creating the broken in our world. And then we spent some time in that. And then last week, we spent a little bit of time on what's the main tool that wake-uppists go to figure all that garbage I just said. How do you prove it to yourself? Because Buddha's not saying, please believe me. Buddha's saying, this is what I saw. You go try it. You want to fix your world? You go try this thing. You try all these practices with these understandings and see your mind open up. And when he said that, he said that the main thing that you have to work with is your mind. He said mind only, or mostly mind, that we have to work in, because that's where the models of reality are formed, and they're formed in a way that we can identify, figure out, and break out of. And so he said to do that, you've got to learn to meditate. And the bottom line there is two big states of mind. You have to have a mind that can focus and get still pretty quickly, reach this state of shamatha. And to do that, it's very step by step, like training a dog or going to the gym and training your body. If you're a dancer, then you do certain things to make that dance mechanical, and then eventually you remember all the steps, and then you do it naturally, and then you get better, and then you get better, and you're not even conscious of dancing. You're just moving, yeah? And it's the same if you're a yoga instructor, if you're a painter. What our minds can perfect a thing. And Buddha said, well, go perfect the mind through meditation. So we did the the 6 preliminaries, the 7 ingredients, the posture, like there's all this technique to get our minds still. And that's not enough. Once you've got a still mind, you want to put in front of your mind something worthy of waking up, the nature of reality. Who am I? What is this world? And so there are meditations and techniques to go and wake that up, some of which people are learning in the meditation teacher training. And so I showed you this chart last week where we talked about the first 4 steps of this training your mind to wake up. I don't know if you remember, in stage 1, you find something worthy to meditate on, to place your mind on. And then your mind, like a monkey, see this elephant, the dark elephant, the gray elephant, is chasing a monkey. The monkey is your distractions and the elephant is your mind. And just because you sit down and meditate and go, right, I'm going to focus on this, doesn't mean you'll do it. For stage 1 of meditation is you're just chasing after your crazy mind who can barely stay focused. And you realize how insane we actually are. And then in stage 2, you're able to stay on the object a little longer. In stage 3, you stay even longer and only have little patches of distraction. And there's all these techniques to bring your mind back to what you chose. And it's really a very clear, linear way to train your mind to stay where you want it to. And then stage 4 means you're continuously placing your mind on an idea, on an object of meditation. And when you've reached that, really you're in another realm. You're in another league of humans who can actually focus. And there's all these awesome side effects, which we Westerners think that's what meditation is. I can focus more, I can calm down, I can have less of a stress response. They're all boring side effects from the Buddhist point of view. They're like, you can relax all you want, but you're going to die. So why don't you meditate on why you're going to die? Why don't you meditate what causes death or illness and sickness? Because if it's just your mind projecting and things are empty, that also can be undone. Big claim. Anyway, that's why we meditate. And I thought this week I'd show you a little video for those of you who are learning the 9 stages of meditation, of which we just covered the first 4. I thought I'd show you this little video that some Russian guy did to denote what's happening with our minds as we meditators chase after it. So enjoy for a second. Sorry about the bar, I can't change it. So this is your little meditation room. You're sitting your ass down on the cushion and you're going to go meditate. This is you. And this is what your mind's doing. Let's go place our mind on the object. And your mind's like, no, I'm just going to go be distracted now. So that's stage 1. And you're like, come back, mind. I'm trying really hard to meditate. I can't stay here. Come on, come on. And so the closer you get to actually meditating, the closer you get to your mind, you're like, oh, I can stay on it a little bit. And see the patch changing on the elephant's head? That means, okay, I can stay on the object a little longer. But I'm still distracted. You're still chasing your crazy mind. And the distraction, the monkey, is getting a little slower. In stage 3, you're meditating longer and longer. And you're hooking your mind. See the tool there? You're actually hooking your mind with some of the tools we teach in meditation. And you have a much more peaceful engagement with your mind. Your mind can stay on the object for longer. And now you're ahead of the mind. You've stayed in front of your mind. Stage 4, continuously on the mind, on the object of meditation. And this is an awesome part. You're saying goodbye to your gross distractions. You're like, no, I got this. And your mind shifts a little bit. It changes some. And then you show some pliancy and some practiced ease in this stage of meditation. And it gets finer and finer. So you're like, no, I'm the boss. Mind's like, okay, I'll do what you say. But it feels blissful. It feels really physically and mentally blissful. And then it gets trippy. You go into higher levels of meditative concentration. You reach this thing called shamatha, and then it gets very trippy. And I really like the way they depicted it. Like I'm meditating, it's like Inception. I'm looking at inside the shape of the inside of the shape, and you're completely at ease, and you're not making any distractions. And then you get enlightened. Yay! It's easy. See, it's easy. So I don't know why you're all complaining about the reading being too dense. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about why we're going to know this course. Did you like the video? Can I get a thumbs up? Good. Sorry about the commentary. I thought I had to just like, otherwise you're just watching someone chasing an elephant. Yeah. So the reason why today's class is important, we're looking at the foundational texts of wake-upists, Buddhists, from early on. Like, where did the practice of logic and reasoning perception come, and how do those practices investigate karma, the movement of the mind that projects a model of reality which isn't reality, except it is for us. And so it analyzes that, it analyzes emptiness. Is enlightenment really possible? Can we actually destroy this perception of death and dying? So that monster there, that signifies death and dying. Is it possible, instead of seeing this body as mine, because if it's my projection, is it possible to experience it as something else and destroy the forces that we call death? Yeah. And that's a big claim, but yeah, we can. See, I showed you how you could. You just smash it in the head. And so you could possibly, if you're projecting this kind of body, or a 5-year-old body, or a 60-year-old body, could you also project, if you figure out what is projecting, a body that doesn't die, a body of light, and you've heard all these terms, a rainbow body, a angel's body, etc. Is it possible, because of emptiness, things not having a nature, to project something like that? And that's what the Buddha said, look, I had this realization, it's possible to reach an enlightened state where your body, there's no suffering anymore, no sickness, no death, no old age, and you can perceive yourself perpetually as this enlightened thing. Big story. So we're just looking and diving in at the logic behind it in this class, and then some more logic about that applied to future lives next class. Does that make sense? Sorry, it's a big download. That's what we're covering. Sorry, I'm rushing through it. So the big question is, what happens to us when we die? Right? What happens to us at death? And the texts that we're looking at are there to refute a worldview from around the 700s that said, everything ends when you die. Like, there's no more Hector. And, part of that is true, but part of that is so untrue that we're going to go in and investigate. What happens when we say death? And so, we've heard stories in the West of there's a light, follow the light. There's a tunnel and I'm drawn to the light. I used to tell this to my friend when I was younger, my friend Evan from school. And he says, does that mean we all turn into moths just for a millisecond after we die? Because we all follow the light and then, oops, it's finished again. Anyway, I thought that was a funny joke. Here we go. So does something continue? Does something go on? And it's a big question, right? And to do that, we're going to go and analyze the Buddhist logical approach to what happens to our consciousness when we pass that moment we call death, and what happens to our body, yeah, and then also at birth. So that's my story. You're in for a treat. And then we're going to have a little breakout group at the end to try and bring our current ideas on life after death or death after death at the end of today in breakout groups. So now I'm going to give it to Javier and mute myself to just share where we got all this content from.
All right. So as usual, this is not something that we made up. There's a whole bunch of masters. Every few hundred years, you have somebody that comes up, have amazing realizations with texts that have been taught in the past, and they add to what they know and what they've learned, and we build upon that. So we almost always start with the Buddha. He's the one who spoke all of this. And then in this case, we're going to be basing all of the studies in today and in the next class The Companion on Valid Perception was a text written by Master Dignaga. He is the master logician in Buddhism. He is to Buddhist logic, whereas Aristotle is to Western logic. The first one that came with a big proposition after Lord Buddha. Then the Master Dharmakirti kind of like followed his steps a couple hundred years after, grabbed everything he had compiled, commented on, and studied more and added more to it. And the commentary on valid perception. So how this works, usually there's a main text and then commentary up and commentary up and commentary. Gyaltse Je, when he comments on the commentary of valid perception with the light of the path of freedom, he is the student of Jetsun Kappa. Jetsun Kappa was the teacher of the first Dalai Lama. So Gyaltse Je is kind of like the Dharma brother of the first Dalai Lama. And then the commentary closest to us is from Geshe Yashe Wangchuk, which is funny to say. And he wrote the Jewels of the True Thought. So this is basically where all these texts come from. It's in the reading, it's in the answer key. We just want to make sure that you know this is legit. And that's why we go through this lineage, not because it's something that we pull out of a hat. We actually pull it out of many books. So logic and perception. The perception is the main, kind of like the main content when we're studying logic in Buddhist perspective, right? And all of the Buddhist logic, 100% of it can be traced back to this one paragraph, sentence, idea that the Buddha spoke. And the first time I heard it, sounded kind of like dogmatic to me, but we're going to break it down a little bit so you understand why this is, right? He said at some point when somebody was asked like, oh, why can I judge what somebody else did say? He said, I or someone like myself can judge a person, but no normal person should judge another, for he or she will fall. This was literally speaking by Lord Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. So this sounds weird. Like, what do you mean fall? What do you mean someone like yourself? So basically the idea of all this, there's like a whole bunch of breakdowns or what, but the bottom line is like, if you go around judging people without really knowing what their intentions are behind their actions, you fall into a pattern of judging, and that creates very bad karma. You start feeling judge yourself. You start like basically your reality start getting distorted. The main idea of judging somebody immediately creates some self-existent reality outside of you. So you're basically creating bad habits, mental habits, right? Lord Buddha, once you get awakened, the awakened mind is said that it can read minds. So that's why he said, I or someone like me, because somebody who actually can read the intention behind an action can judge somebody. If they would so, probably they will not actually go into any judgment because they can actually see past, future, present, and everything in between. And then the other part that's important here is, sorry, I got distracted with my family walking by. I apologize. So yeah, basically, you don't want to be judging people. You can really fall into this pattern, and it will take you down a bad rabbit hole into really future lives if we can prove to you next class that they are true. There's a few core ideas that are important to keep in mind. So in this class, we're kind of like gonna lay a foundation of some important concepts that they don't come natural to us as Westerners. And that's kind of like the reason why we're gonna put them out there. I'm not gonna be able to explain the nitty gritty of them. Hector will not be able to do it either today. But wanna make sure that you know them, because otherwise some of the stuff that we're gonna talk about is gonna fall apart. So Tsema, it's a valid perception. The concept of valid perception. What is a valid perception? We're going to go deep into it, but in general, a valid perception is something that you can perceive with an aired mind, something where actually you're perceiving it, your mind is not intoxicated with anger or with substances or anything, right? That's what a valid perception is. Basically, almost all the perceptions that you're having without being altered by an external factor, that's considered a valid perception in Buddhism. This is important because we might have things that are not valid perception, and we're not be able to identify them while we go down this logic world, right? And then there's something called the near-Lengi cure, and this is basically translates into the material cost of something that costs something else, right? Now, for something to be cost, it's not just that material cost, but some other things. So how do you identify the material cost of something? So let's take as an example a seed. You can get apples from an apple seed. You can get oranges from an orange seed. That doesn't mean that the apple is in the seed, nor that the orange is in the seed. But the seed will turn into an apple tree, right? But you also need certain things around that seed for it to grow into a tree. You need water, you need soil, you need sunlight. So you don't just need the material cost, right? But if you take the material cost away, no water, no sun, no soil will give you an apple tree. However, you can have an apple tree seed or an apple seed, and you can have little water, but enough soil and enough sun. You'll get a mediocre tree. Same, maybe you have a lot of water, but not enough nutrients in the soil. You get another tree that doesn't fully grow, right? So, but you will never get a tree without the seed. So that's what a material cost is the one thing that will flip into what's next. That's how you identify the material cost. You take it, if you take that away, you will not get it. If you have the other things in different proportions, you will still get it in a different quality, right? Makes sense? Anybody thumbs up if it made sense? Okay, I see a few thumbs up. I'm gonna take 50% sense. Okay, that's good. And in this Buddhist logic, we usually study it in relationship to our mind and our body. And more so if we're trying to prove past and future lives, we really want to look at the material cost of the mind and each moment of mind. We'll dive deeper into that. We're going to be covering 4 main things today and on Thursday. Today, we're going to be covering the first 2, and on Thursday, the second 2. So existence, perception, and reality. This is important because we talk about how things exist, how they don't exist, how we perceive them, and what is reality. If all these things that I'm looking at seem to not be true ultimate reality, then what reality? What's reality? And what is a valid reality? What's not a valid reality? We're going to cover that today. And we're going to talk about how the Buddha, the awakened mind, has valid perceptions and how they perceive reality. And also important, how we relate to that awakened mind and what is our valid perception of that, if any. And next week, we're going to talk about causality. That's basically karma, cause and effect. We're going to talk more about it the week. Next Thursday, we're going to talk about causality, cause and effect. And all existing things. There's a beautiful chart where in that chart, we actually put absolutely everything that we can conceive that exists goes in that chart. And then number 4, while we are here all 4 this week, we're going to prove future lives, which in the moment you prove future life, you're proving past life because it's the same logic. So that's what's happening today and on Thursday.
Thank you, Javier. It's a lot, right? So we're about to go into a lot, but a couple of important concepts, like Javier said, this idea of valid perception, I'll cover it now. And then this idea, I'd never heard it before Buddhism. Something needs a principal cause, a main thing that flops into the other thing. That's a core and fundamental idea to then investigate what is this reality? What is the main cause of this existence of mine? And particularly this identification with me as someone, me, my mind, this consciousness. So that's what we're going to use all that study of logic to apply it to. So what's existence? What's reality? What's our perception? And they are loose words in our modern way. But if I say we can't see anything, what reality are you then experiencing? And what perception are you having of colors and shapes, for example, if you have nothing to look at, right? And then that model of reality we have in our mind is what we're trying to investigate here. So I want us to get curious to find a broader way or a new way or a different way to investigate what is. So when I'm saying reality, I mean everything, the inner thoughts, the feelings that arise, the sleepiness that you get when you're doing Dharma class late at night, the excitement that comes when you're like, what if I could figure it out? Like, really have that kind of open, investigative mind. That's what we're looking for here. And so, what is reality? And there's a definition which is a little trippy in Buddhism. We'll get to it, right? Is it what we see? Is what we see what is? What really is? And when I say really, I mean capital R, really, reality is what we are looking at, what actually exists. And we know that it's not. So I'll walk you through the steps that the Buddha left us to walk through to investigate and pierce through the fabric of what appears, the illusion, yeah, and pierce through it to find a reality that is ultimate, that is something beyond what's just appearing. And I'll go back to that thing I said at the beginning. If this eyeball can only see 3% of the light spectrum, you know for a fact you're not dealing with reality already. Like, look around your room. It's not what's there. You're seeing what's inside of you. And you're not doing it by choice. And that's what they mean by projection. They don't mean I'm wishing to see whatever you're seeing. It means you're forced to see whatever you're seeing, both because of the equipment you have, but more so because of the consciousness that labels the data that your equipment is experiencing. That's worthy of investigation. In other words, we're all dealing with a reality that is only a tiny fraction of what actually is. And our minds have the capacity to pierce through that illusion and actually see all of it. And that's why I love this metaphor with the matrix. It's overused in Buddhist thought, but Buddhists love it because it's like, oh my God, I just woke up and there's a reality that's bigger than what I thought. So I invite you to think of that. If that's true for the eye, it's also true for the sounds that we're able to perceive. You know that from scientific inquiry. And Buddhists love scientific inquiry. They just think it falls short to just physical matter out there and does not apply, Westerners don't apply scientific inquiry to the fact that the mind is forever projecting a model of reality based on the limited data it gets, which proves we're not dealing with what's real. So anyway, so that's what we're digging into. So enjoy, relax about it. Don't have to go tense unless you're doing the homework. Then tense up. Yeah. Um, some of you are like, damn. Check this out for a definition of existence. Things that exist. Existence is that which is perceived by a valid perception. Existence is something that is perceived by a valid perception, meaning not broken. It's a valid perception. So we'll better go, what the hell is a valid perception? So we're looking at everything that exists. It does if it's perceived by someone with a valid perception. Welcome to the first definition. We'll use that later. Make sense? Yeah. Everyone's like, what do you mean? You're talking words. Yeah, we'll talk a lot of words today, next week and Thursday. And enjoying it? You're like smiling but holding your head. Good. A valid perception, I think Javier alluded to it. It's a fresh, unmistaken state of mind. And this is vital because the word fresh in there is to separate a valid perception from memory, for example, or a dream, or a memory of a dream. So there's like reasons for all these words, but for our summary purposes, meaning moment to moment, it's a fresh, now unmistaken for the being having the valid perception, right? So when we talk about the pen example, I don't have one, but if we talk about the pen, here is a pen, an object we call a pen. There, thanks, Javier, right? That is a valid perception if you have 3% eyeball and a human consciousness forcing all that data to say pen. That's what they mean by valid perception. It's valid for humans that that's a pen. That same object for a puppy dog is a chew toy. It's not that the pen is a chew toy, it's that the object is a valid perception for a puppy dog consciousness. It actually only is a chew toy if you have whatever percentage of visual content you have and a mind that projects upon that and creates a model of reality for them. It's an existing thing of a chew toy. So I'm trying to tie the pen and the chew toy to what a valid perception is. And it's fresh. As I'm chewing it, it is validly a chew toy. And we humans are validly saying, stupid dog, don't ruin my pen. They're both valid perceptions, right? And there's a trick here. No one said correct yet, right? No one said correct valid perception. And we get trippy here. So we don't have time in 2 sessions to dig into it, but you'll see it in your readings. So important thing to consider, things exist. How do we know they exist? Because someone's having a valid reality of it, a valid perception of it. What does that mean? It's not just a memory or a construct. It's actually an experience that's valid upon some data that my reality labels and experiences, a chew or whatever the senses are that you're using to engage with that. And my mind isn't crazy. I'm not on drugs. I'm not drunked out, and I'm not having perceptual disturbances. Like, this is a human mind, all things being equal, I'm having a valid perception. Make sense so far? So this is important. Imagine growing up with this and looking at the world this way. This is what little monks and nuns are doing and have been doing for thousands of years. And then they're writing commentaries because that's the way they're seeing the world. We don't. We're like, stupid dog, or stupid Republican, or stupid Democrat. Like, we're not even aware that there could be, or accepting that there could be another perception that is valid. Yeah. And because of that mistake, that misunderstanding, we do stupid things, and those stupid things follow us around. Check this out. Go a little deeper. There are 2 types of valid perception, right? And we are having valid perceptions 99.999% of the time. Most of the time, we're having valid human perceptions. Dogs are having valid dog perceptions. And all the other beings who we cannot see, according to Buddhists, but you could deduce or seduce, depending on who you are, they're having their own valid perceptions. So one is direct. So there's a direct perception, meaning the senses engage with a thing and they're having a direct experience of that thing. And that's called nungyer. Actually, we'll cover it. Direct experience or evident reality, nungyer. And then our minds do this all the time. We have deductive reasoning. Yeah, through deduction, we jump to valid conclusions that let us function in this world of ours, albeit at 3%. Yeah, so for example, that I have a hand because I'm waving it. And then you know that I still have a hand even though you're not having a direct perception of it. You're having a deductive perception of my hand. You don't know which finger I'm holding up though, but you all know now, right? That I still have 5 fingers at least. So you're having a valid deductive perception of my hand. Does that make sense? It's a different way to engage, right? We do it second nature. We're doing it all the time. Yeah. You are not having or you might be having a direct perception of your ass on your seat. Yeah. You are also having a deductive perception that the seat is there until your consciousness goes there and has a sensory experience of it. So you can play with it that way. Here are 3 levels of reality and how they relate to these 2 levels of perception. We're just dumping information in your minds about the complexities that Buddhists wake-upists go to have this understanding. And the 3 levels of reality is what I said first, is nungyer, which is obvious things you can perceive directly, like colors and shapes, right? That's evident reality. Whatever's in front of you or sensing, That's your direct experience of reality. Make sense? Nungir. That's easy. But then we have two types of deductive for hidden objects, things we can't see. I hid my hand, you know it's there, right? And if I screamed and you heard a chainsaw sound, you might have a valid deductive perception that someone chopped off my hand, right? That those things coming together. Luckily, that didn't happen. It's not Halloween yet. And so that's true for hidden phenomena. And our minds can engage and experience and understand reality through this deductive reasoning. We do it all the time, but we only do it to a certain degree. We did it when we figured out how airplanes fly in relation to resistance and gravity. We figured out flight once we knew enough about gravity and a whole bunch of things. Through deductive reasoning, we figured that out. If you then apply your understanding of what could be, because you've done some deductive reasoning, you've uncovered a hidden reality, gravity or flight, and you did certain things that let you have a completely different experience that you would have with just direct perception. Example, tons of metal hovering above the sky constantly with hundreds of people facing the same way is possible because we have this deductive reasoning about gravity and resistance. So that's something your consciousness, my mind, has a capacity to do. And most of Buddhist thought is about that, going and investigating reality with that hope that we can uncover something beyond the apparent. And then there are things that are, and that's called kokyur, hidden reality. And then there are things that are shintu kokyur, very hidden, things so hidden that you need to go to an expert to explain it to you, and you've got to have some hope that they're talking the right thing and you've tested what they've talked about. Like you go to a specialist. Like today I went to an eye specialist. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I can perceive that certain things are happening when they test me and they show me, and then I can use deductive reasoning that makes sense. But there are things that I'm like, okay, whatever you say, because I don't know that much about this. And so there are realities that are shintukokya, very hidden, that we might have to go to an expert for. And Buddhists will go to our awakened person, an enlightened being, because through logic and reasoning, they said, well, if they said this and that came out true, and they said this with deductive reasoning, that came out true, it's probable that when they said this, that's also true. And we'll go and dig into that a little bit. Does that make sense? Can I get heads up? So we're just touching these ideas that take years to internalize through debating and studying and practice and meditating for a Buddhist to wake up, and we get to do it in 10 minutes because you're so smart. Yeah. Here we go. Javier, I think this is yours. And how are we doing for time? I'm taking a lot. We got like 8 minutes to do this and my thing. I
So
apologize.
in 8 minutes, we're gonna get you to enlighten. No, 8 minutes. A person of pramana. Pramana is valid perception. We established that, so that's the same as sema. So there's a few questions posed here. Number one, can you have a valid perception towards the Buddha? Can you be sitting somewhere and turn around and see the person sitting right by you as an enlightened being? The answer in almost everything in Buddhism is like, well, depends on who's looking and what are your seats. Because every being is empty of being whatever they are from their own side. It can only be perceived through your karmic seats. Force upon you, like Harita said. You cannot wish to see a Buddha. You can plank the virtue to eventually have a valid perception of a Buddha sitting by you in the baseball stadium. And in the same vein, can you have a valid perception, a pramana, of you as an awakened being? Have you actually like seen ultimate reality and had all the experiences that it is said a Buddha have? And the same, it's the same. If you have built the karmic mountain of virtue to get you there, then yeah, you through logic you can establish that you can see yourself as an enlightened being. Really quickly, I think it got touched a little bit, but I want to dive a little deeper into it. The reason why we're studying logic in Buddhism is because we have to know intellectually, we have to converse ourselves intellectually of certain things to actually have the experience in meditation. This is not just some dudes like, oh, we have enough time in our hands, let's come up with logic. There is a reason why these pieces are there to get us to a point. So sometimes it might be dry, sometimes it might be dense. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and it gets your mind to a beautiful, beautiful place in meditation. That's close parentheses. A person of pramana, a person of valid perception is an enlightened being. It is said that only an enlightened being will all the time have valid perceptions. They cannot lie. They cannot speak untruth. Everything they speak is correct. There are many reasons for that, and I would love to dive hours into it. We have only 6 minutes left, 5 minutes left. So what makes it a Buddha, an awakened being, totally correct? And there's 3 things that it is said in scripture that makes them totally correct. First, anything that they teach, anything that they taught, cannot be disproved by any direct valid perception that we have had or we have. Remember the difference between the direct valid perception and deductive valid perception. Here we're saying that it cannot be disproved by any direct valid perception. We can deduct things incorrectly. We can also have incorrect valid perceptions, but the direct valid perception it's harder to disprove to yourself than something that you just came up with in your mind through evidence. Number 2, the teachings cannot be disproved by airtight reasoning. So that's where logic comes through. And we're going to study logic in this course a little bit down the road, more in depth. But Buddhist logic, like I said, very similar to Aristotelic logic. There's basically a statement, a proof to the statement, and something that proves the other 2. I don't remember the exact formula, but it's logic is logic because it comes from the human language, and the human mind thinks similar regardless of where they are in the world and what philosophy they attach themselves to. And then number 3, this one gets a little tricky too, like everything tricky and trippy. The teachings are free of any internal inconsistencies. And you see the asterisk there, right? The asterisk is because if you actually go textually, literally in the text of Buddha, you might find things that he says that seem to contradict each other. They really don't. That's the next point over. We're also going to study in this course, towards the end of this course, how to interpret the word of the Buddha. But I'm going to tell you a little bit of that, and not in 2 weeks. When the Buddha spoke and when the Buddha taught, usually there were 3 intents behind his teaching. The first one is true, like what I'm saying is actually what I mean, plain and clear.
Sorry, Javier, I'm just going to jump in. Quick correction. The reason the Buddha is called someone that's totally correct is because if they're in accord with reality, then they will never do anything to cause suffering. So they always have to speak truth and plant positive seeds. So that's one of the reasons. And then that third point there about the teachings of the Buddha are totally inconsistent. There is a whole separate study in Buddhist thought that says, well, then when he said something that seemed to be not consistent, how do we know when he was talking metaphorically and or when he was talking literally? And then this whole study that uncovers that has these things like, sorry, I'm gonna jump in there.
Go ahead.
It says, we have to determine what he really intended. We have to look at the contradiction itself, and then we have to say, what's the need for him to contradict himself in order to prove a point? So this is just a summary. It's not a big thing. We will cover it probably in December, January, when we do the last of this mini training course that you're in. So it's just a quick aside, but it's in the homework for those that are doing the homework, and that's why it's in there. So even though the teachings, so the Buddha is totally correct and never contradicts himself, that's not entirely true unless you're educated to see how those perceived inconsistencies are actually metaphorical. A classic example, Buddha said, be nice, don't harm life, stop killing. And then he said, you should kill your mom and your dad. Like, which one did he mean? If you read, like, he said both those things. Those things are said. obviously he doesn't mean go kill your mum and dad. Like, it's pretty clear, right? And so you got to figure, what was his intent? Who was he talking to? Why would he say something like that, right? Why would he contradict? Is he trying to show off? Is he trying to ignite something in you? What's the need for that to the audience? And so there's a whole study, and we'll touch on it again in December, January. Sorry, Javier, because I just heard you say something slightly different about the asterisks. Yeah.
No, please, by all means. Yeah,
No.
if I'm not talking
Yeah.
correctly, I need to be corrected.
No, but I just know also when we're saying things and talk, I think I know what I'm talking about, but I got no
Yeah,
idea what's landing
yeah.
for you. You know, sometimes I say things that are different. So that this is the quick essence of what we're going to use to go look at the state of mind that we die in. We're going to look at what is consciousness when we die, what is the body when we die, and then we're going to apply this airtight logic and reasoning, what we can perceive, what we can deduce, and what we have to go to experts for opinions, because uh, actually, that's what we're going to apply to the proof of past and future lives. This summary that things can be validly perceived, but that they're not always correct valid perceptions, meaning ultimately correct. They're correct for this species or that species. We're going to look at how do we arrive at a logic and a reasoning of why a certain thing is a thing. And is that emanating a thing, or am I emanating that thing? So as we break down the idea, for example, of the principal cause of a thing, like Javier said, you can have a seed and it will produce a fruit or a plant. But without the seed, doesn't matter how much water or conditions are there, you will never have a plant. So that's what that principal cause is, the key that will help us go and dig into why is your mind the mind that you have? Why did your mind arrive on this planet the way it did? Where did that come from? And that's what we're going to investigate next class. Is that okay with everyone? What we're doing now is we're going to prepare ourselves to refute ourselves, or to beat the Buddhists by doing mini breakout groups. So I'm going to ask you to have a small break in a second, and then after that small break, we're going to come back and do 20 minutes and answer these two questions. Yeah, in your groups, we're going to say, can you discuss and agree on the number one reasoning why future lives are not possible? There's no such thing as future lives. That's your group should Everyone in your group should say a word or say something. Say, I don't believe so because of this. I don't believe so because you should try and say future lives do not exist for these reasons. And then you come up with the main reason. But warning, you got to know what future lives mean. What do you all mean by future lives? So you might have some time to discuss that. At the end of the game, you need to know, from our group's perspective, we are proposing that future lives do not exist at all. That when we die, nothing happens, it all stops, bye-bye. Like if the car crashes, then the driver dies. Yeah. We believe that because, and then you should give us some good reasoning. And so just the top one, right? We know nothing happens after we die because that's what we need from you as a group. And the second thing is, actually, we're now going to put our minds on the other side, and we're going to try and prove we must continue after we die because your reasonings why there must be something happening after we die and why, and then report back. So you're going to come back with 2 points per group. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. And this is where your nice meaty discussion. If you're a 3 Joules teacher that has taken this course, do not jump into your breakout group. I'm going to go and make sure everyone has at least one 3 Joules teacher who knows some of the background logic, and they can help you. They won't answer for you. They're going to let you do your debating, and they might edge you and push you a little bit to, have you considered this? Or have you considered that? So don't give them the answers, but encourage them. Make sense? Good. So here we go. Enjoy it, by the way. This is a rare time to be able to investigate when death comes, which is certain. What happens? what happens? And go in there with inquisitive, investigative form. So I'm going to place you in groups first. Then I'm going to encourage you to take a 5-minute break. Come back at 8:40 Eastern Standard, but after you've been established and put into groups. Cool? Here we go. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go into breakout groups. We've got 72 people. Let's make small groups of less than 7, so everyone has some words to say. Everyone should say words, okay? Here we go. And if you're a 3 joules person, don't join. If you've taken this course, don't join. Okay, enjoy. See you at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard, at 5 past 9, 5 past 9. Karuna, don't join. Miriam, can you stay for this? You're muted.
Sorry, I can stay for a little bit. I just teach the 9 p.m.
Oh, okay, cool. So let's see who we got. Chantel, you can join. Danielle Karuna, you can join. Lena, please join. I'm assuming that's mingling, yeah? Maya, you can join. You're good. Hold on. Allison Perry, I'm putting you in group.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm putting you in group 7. We've got May, please join group 11. Chrissy, you're good. Sarah Blackburn, you can join. Chantel, please join. Supriya and Zoe, I'm putting you in group 11. Thank you. Santi, you can join. Javier, you can join. Aurora, please join. We got a bunch of you in group 4. Let's see, who am I putting there? Zach. Anthony, you can join. Miriam, you can join. Diego, you can join. Jane, I'm moving you. Enjoy. Who do we have left? We have Elizabeth in group 4. You can join, Elizabeth.
I don't see how to join, Hector.
You just go over the number and join. Sam, you can join. Karuna, I'm putting you with Sam. Actually,
Jane, it's in the bottom bar next to reactions.
Leah, you can join.
You could say join breakout room.
Diego, please join.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not letting me. I'm on my phone and it's not showing me the option.
Okay. That's because you haven't been put into a room yet. Let's put you in.
I haven't taken 4.
Okay, there you go. Janine.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to put you on room 10. Bear with me a second. Sorry about this, Janine.
Oh, that's okay. It's kind of fun to get to hang out.
I know.
Even though I can't talk to you because then it'll be distracting.
Karuna, you can join. Steve, you can join. Actually, don't join, Steve. I'm going to put you on group 5.
Okay, bye everybody.
Okay, see you at 9 p.m. Steve, you got it?
Am I with other people that know what they're doing? Because I have not been listening.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Chantel, can you join?
Hector, who's in this group that knows what they're doing?
What group did I put you on?
5.
You got JJ. Let me move. Hold on. Let me move Sam to you, okay?
I just want someone that can read. I'm not
I
trying to
got
read
you.
right now.
I got you. I'm putting Sam in there. There's a Javier. Thanks, Danielle. I loved hearing some of your logics and reasoning. We got a few minutes before we have to wrap up and then get into next week. But what you all essentially did, and thank you, because the discussions were really cool. I wish we had more time to actually go deeper because there's implication behind everything you've said. Javier, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna mute everyone, so you're gonna have to unmute yourself to continue talking.
Thank you very much. Okay, is that clearer? Better. Can group 5 first? Because, okay, good. Group 5 needs to go first because...
I'm worried I'm going to get a food delivery. I'm just being real. Okay, so group 5 had some really great stories wish I could share, but that you'll hear them all later, I'm sure. Not possible. There is no future life because it's not tangible or evident. Not tangible or evident. There is future life because if past and future lives if there were no past and future lives, wouldn't all babies just be born as neutral beings without like a little bit of personality and how they react to things? All babies are different. That's our report back to you.
Awesome. So
Thank you.
Megan, before your food delivery comes,
Yes.
everybody that has an answer, type your answer in the chat. Nobody else chat. So they're all together and I don't have ha 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 in between, right? So put group 5, why yes, number 2, why no, and just type that out in summary form. And you can all do it as the next groups are saying their stuff. So that's really cool, right? It's not evident, therefore it doesn't exist. You cannot see my hand, therefore it doesn't exist. Not evident, but anyway, another story. But I also like the 4. Who's group 1? Can someone share from group 1? We have, who is it?
Hi, this is Dana.
Hi Dana, let us know.
I'm in group 1. So I just typed what I was going to put, but basically consciousness or a soul is a concept and a feeling that's more of a knowing, but it can't physically be measured. It's not something that's tangible. And if our personal identity in this lifetime is completely dependent on our physical bodies, like, I'm me because you can physically see me. This is the under assumption that the mind and the body are one entity. When my physical body passes away, my personal identity will also pass away and my soul will pass away. So reincarnation, not an option.
Okay, Dana, that's cool. Then did you get to the second part?
Sachi's gonna do part 2.
Oh, I love you have a team. Okay.
Jumping in here, our top reason why there are future lives is because if we are empty of a nature, if you cannot find Sachi anywhere in me, then I'm having this experience because of my karma, but where did that come from? Like, where's the start? Where can you trace it back to? And so we talked about how there's this concept of kind of beginningless time, where you can't really pinpoint where that started. So it didn't start. We know that all babies are different. So where did it start?
I love it. Okay, so both the for and the against had a bunch of preconceptions, right? You had to say, if this, then that. If this, then that. I love what you all did, and everyone else was doing it as well. What essentially we did as a group was what's called an analytical meditation. You would do this in meditation. Yeah, and I'm going to encourage you between now and Thursday to sit on your meditation cushion, and instead of blanking out or thinking of candles or whatever you do in meditation, let your mind play chess with each other, with itself, and take one position and go, no, because, and then you'll come to a, yeah, but this is required. Yeah, and then bring up the baby. All babies are not blank when they start. They all come up already flavored, right? Where did the flavor come from? And next, on Thursday, we're going to go and look at the possibilities of where those flavors come from with babies, which is a really cool thing. So thank you, Sachi. Thank you, Dana. Who's group 3? 2. Group 2, sorry. That's Tanya, right? Who's the spokesperson for your group?
I want to nominate Teddy.
Yay.
Okay,
I like this.
Thrown under the bus by Tanya. Yeah, we were kind of, for reasons why future lives don't exist, we were talking about kind of the Western ideas that are kind of, you were talking about areas where people have expertise that you kind of just trust intrinsically. We were talking about that as kind of the main reason why future lives wouldn't exist. The scientific material objectivity view of reality that we're all kind of grown up in. That's the main reason why we believe it doesn't. Talking about why it exists. Similar to
Teddy, you're saying past lives don't exist or future lives don't exist because of science? That's what you're saying, because science?
Yeah, there's no like evidence. There's no evidence, no tangible evidence to support.
Oh, okay, no measurable evidence. Okay, cool.
And we believe we believe in material objectivity because of
Got
scientific
it.
dogma.
Okay.
And then reasons why there could be future lives. A lot of the people in the group were kind of saying that they felt intrinsically like there would be future lives, and they've had like deja vu or flashback experiences. And yeah, on the other side of the coin of what I just said, there's no evidence that there are not future or past.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And we were talking about scientific understanding of consciousness and how limited it is. And yeah, basically it's possible that there are future lives just as much as there's no evidence for either way, really.
Good. No, yeah, good. Okay, so we got there. Who's group 3? 4? 4.
All right, I'm in group 4. I'm the spokesperson, Hector.
Thank you, Anthony.
Hello. So ours was, future lives are not possible since we have no proof, no memory of past lives. And then very quickly we said future lives are possible, part because the idea of future lives has been around a lot, and it's in a lot of different belief systems was one thing we came up, as well as that people seem to have talents in this world that had to have come from something previous. So music prodigies, sports prodigies, where the parents don't have any of those skills. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
yeah.
those were very, very similar. Two sides. We talked a lot about two sides of the same coin.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm waiting for, like Teddy did it, right? We don't believe it because you can't prove it. And we don't not believe it because you can't prove it. It's like the same thing. Welcome to your minds. Who's group 5?
You went first.
We went already.
How's your food?
It's good, thank you.
Group 6.
Hi.
Hi,
So,
Jane?
yes.
Hi.
So, the argument against future lives, we decided was the assumption that the mind is flesh, so it dies with the body, and the assumption that the mind cannot live separate from the body. And we also pointed out that, we have trouble remembering past lives, and we also have trouble with, I guess, receiving contact from the dead. That was something that was brought up. And then for future lives, we brought up that the fact that by the law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And even when we die, our bodies, leave nutrients to the earth as we decay. So even our bodies don't disappear. And then we also said that the mind is an illusion, but like the mind is the creator of that illusion. So therefore the mind isn't just flesh, it's also yeah.
Jane, I love your brain. My goodness. What group? Who else was in that group?
Javier, Monica, Anne, and
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jane. It's so interesting. We've come up to, so the fact that you're saying cause and effect applied to physicality and cause and effect applied to mentality or consciousness. That's what we're going to cover on Thursday. It's really cool you guys got there. Who's group 7?
I'm representing group 7.
Represent.
And what Jane said. That was so good. But similar to what many other groups have shared, our argument to not support future lives is there's no scientific evidence. When the body dies, the mind dies. Meh. And then to support future lives, we were definitely more in the pro future life group. So
Pro Future Life Group.
yeah, pro future.
What are you, a candidate for the election?
I am non-bipartisan.
Okay, good. The Buddhists. Anyway, go on. Sorry, distraction.
If you have had a past life, then you must have a future life. Even though you don't remember it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Like, for example, you know, I'm 21 now, and
You're not.
I look like I'm 21. And if I say, and someone's like, well, like, don't you remember when you were one? I'm like, no, I don't remember when I was one, but that doesn't mean that I didn't exist then, right? And
That's
so
cool.
and then Christina had this nice note where she said, if I exist in this moment now, I must have had a past and a future life because mind comes from a previous state of mind. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, we're so proud. We've just done so good.
Yeah, Jane, I think they're ahead of you now. Not that it's competitive, but you were peaking there for a moment.
No, they're not. They're not.
Who's group 8?
Oh, group 6.
Who's group 8?
I'm speaking for group 8.
Hi, Claudia.
Hello. So like others, we discussed that there's no proof of a mechanism how future and past lives would exist. So we talked about that a little bit. And then for why future lives do exist is because if we're not just our physical bodies and like begets like, then our whatever is not our body has to flop over onto something.
Whoa, wait, who's in your group, Claudia?
We had Leah,
Cheater.
and we had Laura and Annie. We also discussed that our culture might tell us that past and future lives exist, so that's why we believe it.
Whoa, cool. Oh, I remember now. Yes. Okay, thank you. Who's group 9? Is that where I'm up to? Sorry, I'm not counting. Group 9.
Hello, I'm for group 9. We said similar things. We said for no past lives, or I'm sorry, no future lives, there's no scientific material proof of it. And that also a mind in this life cannot surpass this experience of consciousness is singular was like an idea because of no past lives. I'm nervous. And then our yes past lives, well, it was both basically material objectivity was the leading.
Right.
And then our yes past lives, karma is not limited, atoms are infinite, energy can only be transformed, and layered time is all happening at once.
Whoa! You had the trippy group. I was looking for the trippy group. You had it. Okay.
Can I add something? I'm Sarah Blackburn. Can I add a really cool objection that also came up in our group?
Yeah.
It was Soban, and what he said was, well, if you are telling me that because I don't remember something, that is why it doesn't exist, I think. Sorry, you can jump in, Soban, if I'm losing it. But what he was saying was that if karma is your consciousness observing something, and the fact that you watch it is what creates the karma, the cause of it. And so if you don't remember your past life, how could karma continue? Because you don't remember, you weren't watching it. We're saying you don't remember your past life, right? So then how can karma continue? Because you don't remember it. What was observing you make that mistake? That thing is shifted, it changed. Does that make sense?
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Okay, so my point essentially was, if you have, if you're punished in this life for previous misdeeds, then you should in fact be able to remember it. But when you're born into this life, you don't. Okay, now I kind of forgot my own point now. Sorry, I wrote it down. 1 second. So if you are reincarnated into this life, because you don't have the recollection of your previous life, therefore you don't have the personality of that lifetime that caused you to have the bad karma in this life. How can you say that you are being negatively affected from your previous life in this life when you don't even remember the previous life?
Interesting.
Does that
So
make sense?
yeah, sort of, but it two things for me got mixed up in that thing, and it's worthy of investigation. Number one, just because you don't remember something doesn't mean it didn't happen. Santi's group refuted that, right? So I don't remember what happened at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the 26th of October in 1978, right? I don't remember, but it didn't mean my mind wasn't aware of what was happening and those seeds planted in my mind. Back to your point, it doesn't mean that just because my consciousness isn't activated now in memory of that my consciousness wasn't there to plant the seeds. Yeah, just so that's an interesting point. The other thing that I saw, not just in your group but in other groups, mix up a little bit, which Buddhists don't, the idea of me as a person being my mind. The fact that I wasn't there, that Hector didn't exist that way at that time. There was no Hector like this when I was 6. This thing is nothing like when I was 6, but I believe it was. So the personality part of your argument is interesting to consider, right? So is my mind my personality, or is my personality something also imputed by the mind, raw consciousness that is just carrying this data like this body is carrying data? That's worthy of investigation. I love that your mind went there, and so it's a really cool point. And now we're all collecting information, right? We're collecting tools going, oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. And that's what we're going to get our minds to fight with itself between now and Thursday. Next group, is that 9 or 10? 10, please. Group 10.
Yeah, I think we're up next, 10. So I'm going to do against, and then Alex is going to do 4. So speaking of like me and my mind, we talked about the mind and the brain, and like, you know, if we're assuming they are correlated, if not the same. So when we die, the brain doesn't function. And if the mind can be damaged when the brain is damaged, then none of it can survive death. So we can't continue on. So thank you, Alex, for summarizing that for me so I can present it.
Cool.
So our arguments for, we kind of drew upon a couple of like more modern scientific thought, which is like quantum physics, linguistic superstructures, in like the psychological field, like archetypes that we're born with. So I'll speak to the quantum physics portion just because that's the part I know best, but you know, physics and Buddhism seem to be converging on a lot of fronts right now. And the idea that matter can be entangled with other matter on other sides of the universe, or that, you know, mass and waves are the same thing, that something can exist as a probability or as a mass. So I always like to think of our minds as things that take probability concepts and actualize them in the tangible world. And if you think about a conscious universe that is trying to understand itself through, you know, creation, we as conduits that take concepts, interact with matter, and then return to the source with those concepts further explored, it exists outside of classical science in a lot of fields. And so it's very reasonable that it could jive with the idea of reincorporation with a lot of, you know, pre-existing lives.
I'm so glad you're here, Alex. Thank you. Awesome. Is there another group? Well, I think there was, right? 11?
Yeah, that's me. I'm part of group 11. I'll be the
I know you.
spokesperson. You never know me. So our reasons against future lives are similar to what everyone else was saying, that the mind originates in the brain. So when the brain dies, the mind ceases to exist. And reasons for future lives, matter can neither be created nor destroyed. So when at the moment of death, we simply transform, similar to when something's on fire, it turns into ash. Also, the consciousness that thinks of you as you still exists. So something can continue.
Interesting. Oh, we're so close. It's so good to hear. Is there another group that I missed? Was that 12 or 11 groups? I think 11. Good. We did great. So now I'm going to invite you to consider everything you've heard and just really put it front and center of your mind between now and Thursday. Going, hold on, I think what he said about quantum physics makes sense. And then you're going to have some assumptions you might need to go and check out, and that will make you look things up on Google or read something. And the same for and against. So I love that we have this meditative focus on what is not, what is not, because your mind will end up taking a position, and on that position will act. Yeah, it will act by second nature. And next week, there's a ton of content. Javier and I will try our best just to get to the essence of the logical arguments in the Buddhist canon, through Dharmakirti, Dignaga, and the rest, who say, if this, then that, if this, then that. And we'll do our best to say, is it likely, or is it possible, or is it not possible to logically prove it? That's it. We've got 2 minutes. Javier, do you want to say anything before I press the stop record button and we do dedications?
No, yeah. I love this theme, this course, because it's very logic heavy, and I've always been a big fan of math and logic. But the conversations sometimes with people who are not like super deep into this, it's great because I've been studying this for so long that I forget that I could have thought there were no past and future lives. And it's a good reminder of what my mind was engaging with a while ago. A good reminder of like, oh, I really thought mind stopped when body stopped. And it's, when I went to Nepal, I found out that many people believe in these things like dogma. They just got taught this thing and grew up knowing, and it's hard for them to explain past and future lives. And for a second today, I felt like that. I was like, oh man, I'm like so engaged in this that I have no proof against past or future lives. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it kind of like jumped so in my face right now, like just like 15 minutes ago. And it's, yeah, just question it all the time. Even if you believe that there are future life, question it again, because you can prove it back to yourself and make that belief a little stronger. That's all.
Thanks, Javier. So for those of you doing the homeworks and quizzes, just take a screenshot of this or look it up on the Thinkific. But basically, there's a concept in Buddhism that Buddhas, awakened minds, beings that have fully awakened and are in accord with ultimate reality, are all-knowing versus all-powerful, yeah, or all-loving, which is what we tend to think of as gods. And so people say, if you're a Buddha, you're all-knowing. And what it really, really means is they know exactly what to take up and want to give up and what they need to give up in order to awake. And there's this beautiful sort of sarcastic comment from Master Dharmakirti, who proved Master Dignaga or stood up for him in his commentary. He says, if you want to know what karma produced every atom of everything, if you want to be all-knowing in that respect of knowing all the stuff, then go fly with the eagles, because they can see lots of detail from far away. You can become one of those obsessive little animals like the eagles, but it doesn't mean that you know exactly what to do to get out of suffering and exactly what you do to reach bliss. There's a difference between being all-knowing as in knowing all data and all-knowing as to knowing exactly what will get you out of trouble. And then there's this awesome, I think this is the opening to Master Dignaga's book on Pramana, but this is super, super coded, and we're going to unravel it a little bit next week. It says, and it opens the opening lines of the logic text. I bow down to the one who turned correct, bunch of meaning there, who helps all beings, bunch of meaning there. The teacher, capital T, bunch of meaning there. The one who went to bliss, bunch of meaning there, and our protector. And so we're going to unpack that through the eyes of the commentaries, and then we're going to work on the logic for past or future lives as best as we can in a short while. Let's dedicate the goodness that we did, and then go thinking about this debate in your mind. So let's dedicate any goodness we just did here so our minds can wake up. Saji Poki Jishian Metok Tram Rira Lingxian Yindegam Padi Sange Shindu Mideguarki Droken Namda Shinla Chupar Sho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniryatayami Gawadi Gawoken Sunam Yeshe Zogzogshin Sunam Yeshe Legend Away Dampa Kuni Topar Show. Thanks, every one of you, so much for placing your mind here to find out what your mind is. Hi, Alex's baby. Have an awesome night. Let your mind play. Say hi to Alex's baby. Bye, everyone. See you on Thursday.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. Thank you, Javier.
Thank you, everyone.
So great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please stay.
Thank you.
Thanks for the birthday present.
Thank you.
You're all so kind. Hi, John Chris. Sachi, your brain. Oh, thanks, Eric. Zach, thanks for your insights. Elizabeth. Ugh. Bye, Michelle. My belle. Maya. Rachel. JJ. Danielle. Ugh. Okay, I'm logging off so I can log in. Love you all.
Hey, bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the love you've shared with me all week. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. Thank you, Javier, for teaching.
See you, Javi.